can barely contain my excitement to bring you this glorious video. We're going to talk specifically about the difference between the Monstera Albo Borsigiana and the Monstera Thai Constellation. This girl's beautiful and very large. Definitely different ages. My little Albo Borsigiana is more of like a preteen, and my Thai Constellation is definitely a more mature teenager, but still not a fully developed plant. And if you have been a plant enthusiast for a while, or maybe you're just getting into the world of plants, there's a few very simple things that you can learn about the difference between these two gorgeous plants that have kind of taken the world by storm. Unfortunately for me, I didn't buy one a year ago when they were much more affordable. They're really, offensively priced at this point, but if you really love them, they obviously will grow into absolutely gorgeous plants. And so I think it's 100% worth it. One of the things I will say is these are not beginner plants. If you have never experienced owning a tropical plant before, I do suggest starting with just a normal Monstera, so not variegated. The variegation is the color in the leaves, and you just, if you can keep this one alive and they all survive the same way and you feel really happy and comfortable, then you can move into more of the exotic, more rare plants because they're just much more expensive. Plants hate being moved, they hate drafts, they hate anything that is unsettling. They like to grow where they're planted and really get comfortable and acclimated in their new environment, and it takes time for them to get used to that. There are some pretty major differences between these two plants, even though when you're just looking at them, they may look very, very similar. There were a few specific differentiations that helped me decide which plant was ultimately going to be right for me. Obviously, it ended up that I decided I would just really need both of them to make my life complete. And so here we are. But to help you, I'm going to give you the breakdown. Number one, the Monstera Albo Borsigiana actually occurs like this in nature. It's going to be a lot less uniform. Sometimes leaves can come out predominantly white. Sometimes they can come out predominantly green. All of the color comes from the actual stem. So if you are finding that as your plant is growing, it's not giving you exactly what you want, you can actually propagate. So you take the leaf off and you can actually help modify the plant. So in my opinion, the Albo is a little bit more for somebody that wants to baby the plant and work with their plant. Going to basically get like a node, and then you need to know how to repot this and have it survive and be excited. This part right in between the nodes on the Albo are going to be much larger in between. So it will be much easier to propagate an Albo because there's just more space. It's fully grown is going to be about a foot with the leaf, whereas the Thai Constellation gets much, much bigger, like twice as big and even 3 times as big. With the variegation on the Thai Constellation, it really does the name justice because it looks like a starry, starry night. And it's so beautiful, but this plant doesn't actually occur in nature. This plant was created in a lab. For all I know right now, there's only one lab in the world that actually creates it, so they're still extremely, extremely rare. With this, you're always going to get a little bit more of a uniform striation. Leaf size is going to be much, much bigger. They grow much tighter together. So you can see the leaves are much tighter. There's less space in between. So a little more challenging to propagate. So now we are going to repot them, because when you bring your plants home, and especially with these particular plants, you're probably not buying the fully matured, soiled plant. You're probably getting a propagated leaf, or this is a little bit more of a mature propagated 3 nodes. These plants like to be a little bit more cozy in their pots. So it is better to use pots that are just about the right size. You never want to pot either of these plants just in your regular like flower soil. They're aeroids, so they need a lot of air and humidity, and they don't like to sit in water. They need a mixture that the water can drain and run through in like a minute. Don't get intimidated by watching other videos and seeing people like list off all of the terminology and scientific names. All you need is like a lot of attention, and I always felt like having a green thumb was a little bit intuitive. So don't follow everything to the letter. You don't need to follow everything to the letter. You can also just kind of work with your plant. Your plant will tell you if it's unhappy, and it also just takes time. So be patient and make sure you have a really airy, chunky mixture that uses at least 4 of these ingredients. Made our mulch, and it's ready right in a nice big bowl. It's nice and chunky beside. A nice clean out bowl. I'm going to use this to assist me when removing her from her sphagnum moss little place. And then we're going to put her into a nice clean new container. And I like to squeeze the pot, pull at the same time. Like I said before, plants do not like being repotted. They don't enjoy any kind of movement whatsoever. So just take your time and support. Don't start ripping or pulling. You don't want to squeeze anything. Oh, hello. So now is our first look at the root system. Sometimes the roots will kind of fuse with a few little pieces of moss. You also don't want to damage the roots, so you don't need to pull. Just kind of be gentle and take a look at what you're working with here. You're going to be very excited to go into your new home. We'll set that aside, and now we have the new home ready. You don't want to squeeze or stress the delicate rooting system that's happening. So I like to just hold the plant kind of where it's going to go and then fill in the mixture around the roots. On the top, I do like to put a little bit extra bark because it just wards away any pests. Pests mostly like to live in the top wet soil. So if there's no top wet soil on your plants, then there's nothing for them to live in, right? And that is nice and chunky and staked. And I think you're going to be very happy in your new home. So it's very important that she goes back into the bathroom in a beautiful, high humidity environment. If I had a heating pad, I would probably put her on a heating pad. That bathroom does get very warm, but the heating pad from the bottom just helps the roots really grow. I like to put a little bit of a root grow. This one's just like a general quick start. And I will actually put just a little bit of this into the water every time I water her. It's really important that you don't over fertilize. So you're ready. Wow. That is a lot of root for such a little girl. End of the root, see how it's like a little bit black and a little bit mushy? That's what root rot is. So I am going to wash her and just take a little bit of a closer look, and we're going to just need to clip off any rotting areas so that the rot doesn't spread. So now that the roots are clean, we can see this a lot better, and we can see that there's not a lot of root rot. It's very minimal, but because that is contagious for the rest of the plant, it's important to nip it in the bud. I'm just going to gently put you down on this nice clean paper. And I have my clean shears here, but it's important to actually take it up a little bit further than you want to, so that you see where I just clipped is a nice white root. You shouldn't see any rot, so that it doesn't spread. And you can see some of the roots are actually like falling off on their own. So I'm gonna take a really nice close look at this and make sure that I get all of the rot off. Because of the roots, I am going to mix in more perlite and more of the clay balls just to make sure that there's no moisture. You're in your new home now, and I'm gonna make sure that you get all of the care you need, and I will use some rooting hormones just to get lots of healthy new roots growing, and we'll do a little update in a month or two. Whew, I'm sweating. That was so stressful, but it was also very fun. I'm so grateful that I dug right in there and saw what was going on. I have a lot of confidence in my ability to be able to baby them back to their glorious health. I'll be posting some videos on Instagram on their development, so feel free to follow me there. This was so much fun. I feel like in my dream of dreams, I would just live in a giant greenhouse and grow you all your vegetables and fruits. So this is like one step closer to living my dream.